Hey guys, Dan Bradbury here, and today I'm very excited to have on the Dan Bradbury podcast Cey Sesiguzel. He's a London-based filmmaker and director, and he's also the co-founder of Two Fresh Productions. But today we're also going to talk about his most recent project, a passion project called The Divided Island, which is a feature-length documentary that examines the complex history of the Cyprus conflict and its impact on the communities there. So he's also running a phenomenal business, growing it over time, overcome many challenges, and we go back a few years. He's been involved with my mastermind program, so I'm delighted to have him here to talk to us today. So, Cey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dan, and that was an awesome intro. I'm feeling really proud of the way you introduced me to your audience. Cheers.
Well, no problem. I know you're going to live up to expectations. So, Cey, let's dive straight in at the deep end. I mean, yes, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I want to talk about. Obviously, today, the increasing importance of video content, video production. You know, even if you're not a content producer or influencer of any kind, every business basically needs to produce content from a position of marketing. But I want to talk about the catalyst that caused me to reach out to you and say you've got to be on here. And this is your passion project. You are rare. There aren't many people who produce a film and manage to get it into the cinema, which is something that you did spectacular last year on a chain of cinemas across London and wider, and it's a phenomenal success. So tell us about The Divided Island. Tell us about that. Well, first of all, what is that project? And then we'll dive deeper into how it came about.
Thanks, Dan. Well, me and Andy, my business partner, have been running Two Fresh for 15 years. And we've been doing corporate commercial work, helping brands and SMEs utilize the power of video and grow their business. Now, that's something that we've got a lot of experience in. But if you go back before the 15 years, we both went to film school. So our goals were always to produce films that ended up in the cinema. It's just we have taken a long time to get there, and symbiotically being able to do that alongside the corporate commercial work hasn't been easy. You know, setting up a business from scratch, having no family or friends previously in business. It took us a long time till we could get to the point where we could also work on a passion project at the same time. So around 4 years ago, actually 5 years ago in 2020, just before the pandemic, I made the decision and I said to Andy, look, we have to make this film. It's been on the back of my mind for literally a decade. And I feel like the business is at a solid enough point where we can balance, you know, having a having a passion project like The Divided Island, which doesn't bring in income straight away, to the corporate commercial work that does bring in income and cash flow day to day. And then the pandemic hit, and producing a feature film, a first time feature film in that period of time, was super difficult, but we managed to get it over the line. And in November of 2024, we launched across the UK in cinemas like Cineworld, Odeon, Curzon, sold out screens. We were the highest grossing film at Cineworld Enfield, even grossed more than Venom 3, which is incredible for such an independent, small documentary.
I mean, it's phenomenal. And there's two sides, Cey, and I want to talk about both of them. And first of all, there's just from the people side. I want to talk about the film itself and what it represents. I think should be of interest to everybody, especially with all the other conflicts going on in the world today. I mean, history can teach us a lot. And I personally was, well, frankly, oblivious to the conflict and the difficulties faced by the communities in Cyprus. But also, I want to talk about the commercial element, i.e. kind of behind the scenes, because like you said, there's it was a hell of a passion project, a lot of commitment with a very long payback period. And somebody listening to this, it may not be a film that they're trying to produce, but they've got something equivalent. So, I mean, kind of go down the route of the film itself first. So for people who might be listening to this like me, Cey, who have, you know, like many of us, as a child or even as an adult, been on Cyprus on holiday, but completely ignorant of, the conflict there. What's the backstory? What's the What's the premise, or what was your drive? Why did you want to create the film?
Yeah, so most people in the UK know Cyprus as a beautiful paradise, holiday island in the Mediterranean where they go and party in Ayia Napa or just, soak up the sun all year round. But for Cypriots like myself and Andy, where I'm Turkish Cypriot, he's Greek Cypriot, we have a tragic and traumatic past. And for the past 60 years, there's been events, this conflict in the fees in the 1960s and in the 1970s that really tore apart families, made people refugees, people losing land, people losing loved ones. And both of our families in Cyprus were affected by this. It's part of the reason why both of our families immigrated to the UK and why many Cypriots immigrated to the UK for a safer and better life. So we kind of felt best placed to tackle this film and create a film that looked at the trauma and conflict through both sides. Unfortunately, with any conflict, there tends to be a heavy amount of propaganda. And whenever a conflict is discussed, it can be from one community's point of view. And we felt the Cyprus problem was really much had that issue. Most people had never knew that the conflict had two sides to the story. And with us being UK-born Cypriots that work together, that built a business together, and that see each other as brothers, we thought we'd be the best people to tackle this subject with a bit more empathy and hopefully bring a bit more education around the complexities around most conflicts. Cyprus is really just a microcosm of other major conflicts and divisions around the world, and it does have universal themes.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and obviously the conflicts going on in Ukraine, in Gaza, etc. There's so many examples. So I'm curious, what did you learn? I mean, obviously this is your family history, your life experience. Did producing the film and did doing the recording and the editing did it shine any new lights for you? Did it open any? Were there any kind of epiphanies or moments of kind of clarity or breakthrough? Did it cause you to see things in a new way?
Yeah, I mean, you're always learning. Part of the reason for me wanting to make this film is to have even a better understanding and learning. When you tackle any film, whether it's a corporate video for a charity or a passion project like this, to tell the best story and to be the best storyteller, you have to do incredible amounts of research. And part of that is academic research, and part of that is just by speaking to people and doing the interviews and being on set and being in the country. So you're always learning. But coming back to it, I guess rather than political or historical nuances, the thing that hits home the most is the shared trauma and the importance of having empathy for other human beings and not seeing the nationality of that person's a Greek Cypriot or that person's a Turkish Cypriot. And who's to blame, who started it, but just seeing that that is a mother who lost a son, or that is a daughter who lost a father. And then the ethnicity goes out the window and you just see human suffering and human pain. And you can't help but be affected by the empathy. And that really hits home with me. And I know many people that went and saw it in the cinemas left the cinema having a feeling of more empathy. And I just think, that's never a bad thing. In this current situation in the world.
Right. And to kind of segue it to the business side, I've always found, Jay, tell me if this has been your experience, whenever I've had significant personal life experiences, whether it be a death or a happier experience like a birth, any significant change of any way, shape or form, there's normally lessons that actually help in business because it's helping you communicate better, it's helping you being a better human being. So talk to me now about the business side of this film. So it was done as a passion project. You had something that you desired to do in the world, but I would imagine that the process of the film industry, how it all works, is just crazy. Rejection after rejection after rejection. So how does it work? You've got an idea, you want to get it into the cinema. You start with a blank slate, I presume. I mean, I know Too Fresh and your production company would help in a sense, but where does one begin with a idea that grand?
You're right. The filmmaking art form is probably the most expensive art form in the world. It's not like sitting in a room and painting a painting. It's something that requires incredible team, high quality equipment, traveling the world. It's an expensive art form. So first things first is you need resources. Now, Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that I can do myself, and I have a production company which does reduce the cost, but you still need money to make a film. And I put in pretty much my life savings to get this project off the ground, and it was about getting to the next step. So my money and my sweat equity got it to a certain level. At that point, where I needed to get archive footage from the 90s or 60s, I had to go and raise some investment. So I went to some of my clients, asked them if they wanted to buy a share of the entity, which was the Divided Island Limited, and bought on investment just the way anyone would to raise investment for any other business. And those people would have been, my clients were really excited to be part of the opportunity, not just from a commercial point of view, but more in terms of supporting the project and what it was trying to achieve. That got us to the next stage, and it was a case of just sweat equity, selling corporate videos, selling commercial work, putting money aside, putting it into the passion project, really just putting in the hours. Any bit of extra savings I could make, I would put back into the film, and that got us to the completion stage. And then once we got to the completion stage, you traditionally would go and try and sell it to distributors. So a distributor would buy it or license it, and they're the ones that will distribute it to the world, get it in cinemas, get it on the video on demand platforms, etc. We knocked on many doors, multiple doors. This is where the sort of sales training comes in, and the persistency and the numbers and getting in front of people, etc. And we got a number of rejections, just like a salesperson does when they're trying to close a deal. It really much is a numbers game. And then I just came to the decision that, well, why don't I distribute this ourselves? Why don't Too Fresh distribute this? And then we learn the game of distribution. And then that skill set is added to us. And that's what we've done. We, again, went straight into research. How has this been done? Can we work with some consultants to help us do it? Invested in consultants and mentors that had been there, done that. And we managed to get it over the line and get it in major cinemas like Cineworld and Odeon. And that's been something we're so proud of, because now we have the knowledge. We don't need anyone else to do this again. We can do it in-house, and we can support other people doing it as well.
I mean, it's fascinating, and it's amazing to effectively to distribute yourself, to self-distribute. I mean, the analogies for a lot of people listening, obviously, I mean, there's a couple of books that I've written, and I'm working on another one now. And there's the classic, self-publish versus a regular publisher, and the general theme, it depends on the situation, is that self-publishing is better. But that's only true if you know how the self-publishing game works. So I love how you kind of embrace the learning, which, by the way, is for the people listening. I mean, that's what we do as business owners, right? We've got an idea, but we have to figure out a whole bunch of things along the way. So I'm curious, relating it now to the audience, Jay, what makes a good film? And that could be, because you're referencing the kind of corporate kinds and the commercial videos you produce, but it seems to me that in 2025 or more, there's an increasing push and an emphasis from the social platforms on video, even LinkedIn, Instagram, putting more emphasis on reels, etc., etc. In fact, it's funny that we even call them podcasts now, because it seems like there's an increasing move to video and the importance of videos, and there's production quality, which is a critical element, but there's also just the story so let me leave it broad and just say, for the people listening to this, why do they need to be doing video, and what makes good content? What elements make it up in your view?
It's a great question. I mean, this is something that we've been educating our clients on for over 15 years. But whether you're a small business or a brand, one of the pillars that I always come back to is authenticity. And let's talk about that from a documentary point of view, and then we'll bring that back to a corporate commercial content point of view. If you're watching a documentary and you feel like the people on camera are lying, or they're being fake, or they're not being genuine, you're totally taken out of the reality. You're not even going to consider the production quality of it, because you're going to be like, I don't believe this. This is unauthentic. I don't believe it. And it might sound simplistic, but that's the same with an expert on LinkedIn who's trying to give coaching advice. But you can tell they're just rehashing something from ChatGPT, and it's not their lived experience. So authenticity is the key. Audiences are smart. They know. They can see it in your tonality, in your body language, whether you've lived what you're preaching or whether you've just, took that from another influencer adjusted it to make it your own, and then put it out as content as if it's your own original thought. So I always come back to authenticity as the key. The production quality stuff, audiences will be forgiving on. And it has me as a video production company saying it. Obviously, the glossier it is, the better the picture, sound, lighting, it helps. But more important than those things is authenticity. That's like in real life as well. I mean, if you meet someone at a networking event, it's no different. If you get the vibe or the energy that there's too much blarney there, or sales spiel, or they're just, fluffing too much, and they're not being their authentic self, it can be a bit, oh, do I want to do business with this person? And online video content is just an extension of how you should be at a networking event, really. Be the same person you'd be in real life on camera.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is a little bit of a controversial statement, and this may not age well because of with the continuous evolution of AI. But it still seems to me that because of AI, it allows a much increased speed of production of content, but it feels to me like the quality is significantly decreased. So in a lot of cases, it's immediately apparent what AI has been involved in. And it feels like there is I was going to use the word decimation, which seems a bit dramatic, but it feels like a decimation of trust. Nobody trusts anybody. Nobody trusts sources. Is this a deep fake? Is this whatever? And so it seems to me, use the word authenticity. I'll use the word trust, which not quite synonyms, but close, to say, yeah, I think there's going to be a bit of a swing back towards increasing emphasis on trust and authenticity. So beyond critical. So what now would you say to somebody watching this? Because I've tried to up my game recently that people may or may not believe in terms of video content. What would you say to business owners listening to this with regards to, as they're creating content or looking to create or do video, what should they look out for? Or if they're going to use somebody, if they're going to use a company like Too Fresh or whoever they do use, what are 2 or 3 questions that they might ask, or 2 or 3 points that they might want to lean on in order for them to get the results that they want?
I would say a good thing to ask a video agency or a video expert or consultant really is around their experience in getting the best out of the person on camera. Because going back to authenticity, you might try to be your authentic self, but then when you're in front of the camera, for some reason, your tonality changes, your speech rhythm changes, you just feel nervous. And then unfortunately, if you're putting that out to the world, it comes across as, this person doesn't seem like an expert because they seem nervous, or they're speaking too quick, or etc. So, and someone like me who's obviously interviewed people for feature film documentaries, what I bring to the table is that interviewing process and making someone feel comfortable in front of camera and pulling out their best authentic self. So that's where a bit of coaching and support with working with an experienced producer director will help you have the best content possible. And it's not to work with them on every single video shoot. It might just be a bit of coaching and consultancy in the early stages, and then you get to the point where you can produce your own content comfortably. But that ties back to authenticity. It's really work with someone to make sure that you're coming across the best thought leader possible and the most authentic thought leader possible in your content.
I love it. So with this, what's next for you? So you've pulled off this passion project with tremendous success. The reviews were awesome, the feedback, the bombardment, and in many senses you've done your, well, I'm imposing this on you, but you've got to the moon and made it back safely. Like, what next? What next for you, Jay? What next for Andy? Or what next for Too Fresh? What are the next ventures, projects?
Thank you. I mean, from my perspective, I don't see it as getting to the moon yet. The ambition is high. We've got a massive burning desire inside to really push the boundaries and keep learning. I mean, that's something that I got from you actually, is being surrounded by people that are playing the game at a higher level. Just keeps moving you forward. And that, I feel like, okay, I've achieved something that's here, but going to the moon, there's still a long way to go. So we want to do more films. We want to do lots more feature films that, tackle important subjects like The Divided Island does. but we're also ambitious to just improve that same production quality in our commercial and corporate work as well. Whether it's helping a charity raise more funds because of a heartfelt film you produce them, or helping a coach serve his clients through video content. You're still using the same principles as you would, producing a feature film. So we like both because they're different revenue models. One's service-based and one is more having a digital product out there to the world. And also there's been knockoff stuff that have come to us that we didn't see coming. So because we distributed The Divided Island independently so incredibly well, we are now getting major feature films and production companies from around the world come to us and say, can you distribute our films in the UK? So we're looking at launching a distribution arm to Too Fresh, where we acquire films from in and around the Mediterranean region, from Cyprus, from Greece, from Turkey, and we help bring those films to an audience in the UK through getting people back into the cinema and through digital on-demand release.
Interesting, fascinating. Well, so a couple of thoughts, Jay. If somebody wants to get in touch, if they want to find out more about you, about Too Fresh, how do they do it? And simultaneously, if they want to see The Divided Island, and if they haven't, they must, how do they go about doing that?
Sure. Well, if they go to our website, www.twofresh.co.uk, information about our corporate commercial work and The Divided Island is on there. And we'll be launching The Divided Island on video on demand very soon. And again, so they can follow us on Instagram as well, The Divided Island. You can find us on Instagram. That's where we put out a lot of updates. Or just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Cey Sesiguzel on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to chat to anyone about the film. It's my pleasure.
Jay, it's been a delight. Thank you for being here.
Cheers, Dan. My pleasure.